am doing my current events reflection. I did mine on the article, The Child Care Crisis Disproportionately Affects Children with Disability. This article really struck out to me due to the title. In one of my other children's studies classes, we talked about child care and like the pros and cons of it. And so I thought this would fit perfectly together. While child care is a struggle for almost every parent, for a parent with a child with disabilities, it can be even tougher. This article is broken down into multiple different points. The ones I'm going to be talking about is disability in early childhood. That just gives you a bunch of facts about disability that's found in childhood. The obstacles of child care, it fits for kids with disabilities and normalized children. And the consequences of having child care versus not having child care. Another thing that really stood out to me and was important is, while reading it, was that it just wasn't written just to have all these facts and this information, but it was also written because a mother with a child with disabilities, also a child who didn't have disabilities, was struggling to find child care and working a full-time job. So to begin, in the section of disability childhood, you're reading a bunch of statistics and all of these information and data regarding to early childhood disabilities. And something I saw was really important was that 15% of children have some form of disability, whether it's physical, developmental, learning, emotional, mental, anything like that. That's 50%, and also could be higher. And it also doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. That's also 15% of parents who don't have any, are struggling to get any form of child care. Are not getting the support that they need. While there are programs and acts that help support individual disabilities, not all things are covered within this. Early interventions with the idea covers everything I could think about a child who has a disabilities, but child care services. So everything else you can think of besides child care. In the article, it states specifically the ADA stipulates that child care programs cannot exclude children with disabilities unless including them would require a fundamental alteration of the program, and that the program must make reasonable modifications to integrate disabled individuals. This stood out to me because we know as a society that children with disabilities need modifications in some form, whether they're large, small, could be the smallest thing. And also, while any child who has a disability or doesn't, does things in different ways, so there's always modifications no matter who the child is or what they have. Things that need to get done for them, how they interact, how they think, and so much more. Also, the thing to think about is, does the child care center get to decide what the fundamental alterations are, or does the ADA? So that's a really important thing to think about when talking about this. Is who gets to make those decisions. Moving on to the next point was the obstacles of child care. It's not a thing that just parents with children with disabilities struggle with. It can be any parent, whether it's lack of spot, as the center can only hold so many children, along with only so many staff that they can find and pay. Money can also be a huge challenge. I talked about this in my other class, but on average, childcare costs $55 per day. So for a month, that's almost $1,700, and that's if you have one child. This mother has two. And even for families who have a two-parent income, that money can still be a huge struggle to find. I know I personally have friends who are a two-parent household, yet they can't afford childcare because even though they're two-income, it's still a whole lot of money. And just looking at the cost, that can be the influence of child care for child with disabilities. If the center takes them, will they get the care that they need to thrive and probably develop socially, cognitively, emotionally, or physically? In the article, it gives an example of a child who's deaf, and ASL is not a common language for people to learn or be fluent in, I took it for 4 years. But still then, it's not something I use constantly, so I do struggle a little bit with communication, but I still have that knowledge. But not everyone does. It's a very small population of the world who knows or has even attempted to learn any basic science. And if a child, so they were talking about the child, if they're put into a center that has no sign, they aren't even getting basic qualities of driving, so they have no communication whatsoever. And then finally, the struggle of finding the care can be consequence in any forms. First, being on the parent. It could be that one or both parents could experience career sacrifices. If one cannot find care, means that one parent has to stay home with the child until they can go to school or find some alternative, or even both parents, depending on how many children they have or the extremities of the child with disabilities, or if they just have to change careers so that they can afford to do something. So maybe they're leaving a career field that they're very passionate about, but then have to change to one that they don't really have any passion about, but it gives them more money so that they can afford these things. And then not everyone has family that can watch their child, because of course other people have their own families, they have their own careers, or they just don't have family around. And of course you can't leave a child alone. And with this consequence, it can be not only impactful for not finding care and losing your career, but financially overall. Can go from having 2 incomes to singular, which can impact the child's medical needs or support. And the article states that 1 in 10 families have to make at least one career sacrifice, which is a ton. But I really like this article. It's something that I personally connect with. I was working with children with disabilities, and it's also something I connect with because I have family and friends who have children with no disabilities and still struggle to find that child care. And it's just something that continues to grow and increase. And again, like thinking back to the question, who decides what these alterations are, or the level of alterations, which are too high or too big or perfect amount, who gets to decide these. So, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the article.